Hi, Brian. Thanks for coming. I've got you all on mute, so if you want to talk, just unmute yourselves. When I start, I will probably just mute everybody and ask you to talk in the chat, maybe. I probably won't keep an eye on the chat too much, so perhaps we'll answer questions at the end. So perhaps if you guys want to make a note or something as we're going through, and we'll try and get everything answered at the end, and hopefully no bugs like the first time around. I'll just I'll take you through a bit about the process, why I use this process, how I do things, and what you're going to learn from today. So basically, I've developed my own way of using Gantry. So Gantry is a free framework. If anyone's not used it before, you can download it from gantry.org. And I base my template off of the Joomla hydrogen theme. The reason being that it has the smallest download size. So this is 4.25 megabytes and this is 600 kilobytes. So that's why I decided to base it off that. And so that's free as well. What I will say is, even though it's free, it's made by Rocket Theme. I still keep a subscription. So support the developers, guys. If you're going to use this technique, you don't need to pay, but I keep a subscription anyway to support them. Gantry has excellent documentation, so please do use it. You can also get help in the forums on Rocket Theme, which they're really, really good support, so highly recommend that. And basically, I'm going to talk you through today a demo site I've knocked up, which is called Sue the Lawyer, which is obviously a pun, because I love a pun. 1 second, I've got someone else trying to get into the meeting. And I'm just going to talk you through the techniques I use to speed this up, my development. Everything I do, I'm doing thinking of the next project. So I'm trying to keep things in a manageable, maintainable way so that things will be done. This template is based off of another template that I made, and I just switched it over so that hopefully you can't see the other client that I was doing. But if you do, I'm not overly fussed. But you'll see that some of it might not make sense. It's just a demo site. So I'll talk you through what I used to do, and that would be go to a template club. So here's a legal template from Shapefile, and I might just try and make this fit the job. So you see here, kind of have blog posts as the second most important thing on this site, and I probably wouldn't view it the same way. I'd probably think showing the lawyers, showing their victories, or showing some value or something like that. So I would have, in the past, tried to do something like use this template. The client would have then come and said, hey, can we just put this there or that there? Eventually, I would have added components, extensions, and everything, and the template and the components wouldn't look the same, and eventually it would kind of look like a bit of a mismatch, and there'd be things that client asked for, and I'd just go, I just don't know how to make that work. So I started using Gantry to kind of do it in a different way. So now my process would be to create something like this. Can you guys all see that? Just shout in the chat window that you can see the PDF. Can you guys all see the PDF? Yeah, you see it? Great. So this would be what I'd do, which is just a very, very basic layout. And I'd give the sections names. And I'd just say, this is important. We need a picture of Sue. So we're going to put a picture of Sue, and we're going to put it next to the contact form because, everybody needs to know who she is before they contact her. We might put a legal statistic to increase trust, and then a picture on a service, and then reverse it, and then a picture of a customer with a testimonial, and then we might put some footer stuff. So we basically would do that first of all, and then that allows us then to create this template however we want and put things in the positions we want where we think they will convert the best and give the customer the best result. So I'll show you in the back end of Gantry. There's a couple of settings that I like to start off by doing, but I'm not going to take you through an entire Gantry tutorial. That's not what this is about. So if you don't know Gantry, go away and play with it and learn it. It's a really cool tool. There's some particle defaults that I normally set, and you'll see that these particles, I've switched most of them off. I don't use the particles in Gantry. I just use Joomla modules, but I do use it to create my initial layout like this, and then I just fill it with the things I need. So if we go down to the is it the menu one? So the menu one, we've got expand on hover. If you switch that off, it becomes click to expand the menu, which is better for accessibility. So I tend to do that. And then if we go into the layout and we go down to this off canvas section, you can turn off this swipe gesture. That basically means on a mobile view, if you drag from left to right, you pull in the mobile menu. But if you've got a slider or something like that, which also relies on the same swipe gesture, that causes a bit of a conflict. So I just switch that off. And the CSS animation you could switch off as well. That's just a sort of sliding in animation, which may help your accessibility. The screen is blurry. Can anyone else see it, or is it not working very well? So it's a bit blurry. Okay, cool. I'll tell you what, we'll do things in a different way. Much better. Okay, cool. Great. Thanks for pointing out, guys. Okay, cool. Nice one. So I'll just show you that again then in that case. We've got this swipe gesture here, which is the thing that stops the conflicts with the slideshows and stuff. CSS3 animation will stop the scroll down effect if you prefer not to have it. And just to take you back to the last one is particle defaults. And it's on the menu, and it's this expand on hover. So you will see, I don't know if this hasn't got any child items on the menus, but basically instead of hovering, it means you can click, which is better for accessibility. What I do is I switch off all of these particles, which is very deliberate because I use the Joomla modules. So you'll see they're all marked in red, and you'll see if I go to layout, they're all grayed out, and that is because I just don't use them. I use the menu one, and that's about it. I use this base outline for everything, and I base all of my styles off of it. So if I go to my home page, you'll see they're grayed out, and I've basically gone to here and I've just inherited from the base outline. And that means if I make a change to, say, the logo, for example, or decide to make it wider, changes on all the pages. So that's the reason for that. And that's what I'd advise you guys to do as well. Not all of the layouts will be on everything. So the home page might not have all of the base items. Well, you'd expect it to have all of the base items, but it might have a few more, in which case they won't be inherited. So I'm going to talk you through a few more things. The reason I use Gantry mainly is because of the flexibility of it. That's what I preferred over the other template providers, and that's why I decided to stick with it. So one of the things you can do is you can quickly add things. So I'm in my hydrogen folder. Can you all see my FTP? Or have I got to change my thing over, right? Change my screen share over. You can see it? See my FTP? Okay, great. So I'm in my hydrogen folder, which is the template I'm using. And if I go into custom, I go into config, and these are all the outline names. So if I go back to Gantry and I go to my outlines, you'll see here's the outlines here. If I create a new outline, just call it another, for example, and it gives you this, where's it gone? It gives you this weird name, calls it after the template. I don't really need that information. Now it's just called another, which is great, but it's got this ID 121, so I will stick that on the end because it makes it a hell of a lot easier for me to remember what I'm doing. And then if you go back into the FTP and I refresh this, you'll see that 121 has appeared because it's the new one that we've created. So when I'm doing my FTP, I really, really like to know which ones I'm editing. So if I go back to my outlines and I'll go to home, so I know that's 117, which is kind of helpful. So I go into there, and you'll see you have this layout YAML. And when I open that, better check, guys. Can you see my code editor as well? Yeah, great. So here I have all of my my sections. So if I take you back to my original drawing, I could say I wanted to add another section called legal statistic. What I would do is open this, and then if I just put it underneath that, I'll rename it. and then I'll save it. You should know with YAML that it's based on the spacing indentation. So 2 spaces here, 2 spaces here. If you put 3 spaces, it won't work. If you put 1 space, it won't work. 4 spaces does work. If you look down here, it gets the 4 spaces. So this is just for my layout. And I've got my structure, and you can see that it's inheriting. Now, all of this stuff, I'm not going to teach you all of this stuff. I've just added this one. Or the best thing to do is copy and paste it. Use the gantry ones that are already there, copy and paste it, so you don't have the mistake with this 2 spaces, right? All of this stuff inherit. I don't even bother doing that in this code here. So if I go back to here, and I'm in 117, so you can see 117 is my home, and 117 is my config file, and I'm going to refresh it, and you can see legal statistic has appeared now, which is great because I've just added it here. So now if I had this in my base outline, which I don't, but if I had it there, I would just use the inheritance here, which it doesn't exist, obviously, but I would do that rather than typing in this stuff because it's so easy to make a mistake. I would just not bother doing it that way. So I guess the next question is going to be, which one is your base outline? And it's this one called default. So if I was to just show you that again, I've got my layout YAML. If I now add my, you see that it's got stuff in it because it's the base one and we added stuff. Now I added feature here, legal statistics after feature. So if I do that, and then I'll upload it with the FTP, and then I go back to my base outline and just check it's there. And you can see it's there now. It's still empty, but it's there. If I now go back to the home that I edited, and I go to that thing here, I can inherit. Oh, did it single? Sorry, singular, not plural. Get rid of the S, upload it again. I'll just refresh my page. You see it's changed, and then inheritance. Now I can inherit from the base outline, and I'll inherit all of the section attributes and the particles within the section. There aren't any, but it's inheriting. So now if I go to the base outline, and I'll just add a module position, and then I'll save it, you'll see that it now should appear in the home one. So there you go. So that's what you do. When I'm doing this, and I add module positions, I basically only use this layout editor for making module positions. So I just use this and I grab it here, and I always rename them. So I click that little button and I'll call it legal statistic, and then I just copy that, and you'll get used to, you hit tab 4 times and you end up in there. You get used to that as a habit. And now you've got your module position and it's in all of the outlines. So that's how you create your new positions, and you can give them sensible names. So now if you can imagine if you did an Akiba backup on this, and then you did a new project, you might have a completely different layout, and you might think, actually, it doesn't make sense to be called feature or legal statistic. So then you can easily just jump into your code and just rename them, delete the ones you don't want. In fact, this is what you got to be careful with. So on here, this has got nothing in legal statistics in the base outline, and this one won't have the inheritance. So now I have to be careful not to overwrite that, because it will remove that extra thing that I just did in the back end. But if I open it again, you will see that legal statistics still doesn't have anything. That's weird. Okay, I don't know what that is, but I'll skip past that. But just be careful of that as you're going through. I will move on to the next bit of something. Hopefully you don't know this either, Vinny. In answering Gary's question, sorry, I know a few came late. What I do in the back end, when I go to outlines in the top here, and I created a new outline, and I just called it, I'll show you guys again just for it was very quick. Create an outline. I'll just call it another, confirm it. It calls it hydrogen another. I don't really like that name, so I just call that. And what I do is I find the ID number, which is here, and I just add it at the end. And that helps me when I'm trying to edit. So now when I'm back here, I see my ID numbers. And now when I'm in my FTP, and I'm in custom, and then I'm in config, and then I see, if I refresh, there's a new one here, 122, and 121's deleted. and that means I know exactly which one I'm editing in my FTP. That's why I give it that name. So now I'm going to show you blueprints, which hopefully you haven't seen either, and styles. So this is how you do, in the back end here, you see these styles, and you have these colors here, right? And you have them for a few sections, but you don't have them for your new sections because it didn't know they were there. And you may not want to put a background color or anything like that. Let's answer that at the end, Brian. Thanks for asking, but I'll answer it at the end if that's okay. So for the section styles here, you may not have them. So I've just created a new section, right? And it won't have anything like that. So what I would need to do is create one here. So I'll create a new file and I will call it legal statistics.yaml. And what I'll do is I'll just grab one of the others because that is the easiest way for me to do this. And then I'll edit my legal statistics YAML. And I'll just whack that one in there. And I'm going to call it legal. I should have just copied and pasted that. Statistics colors. In fact, I will copy and paste it. So there it is, and it's a section. And all I'm saying here is that I've got a background color and a text color. You can also add a background image. It's a really good demo on the Gantry docs. I'm not going to go through it today. Have a look at it if you want to know about it. So if I now close both of those and upload them, let's just see if it worked. Probably won't because live coding. There it is. So legal statistic colors has come up now. So now you can see I can just edit my colors and I could make that color section a different color. That's kind of useful if you're thinking about maintainability and in the future you start a new site, and to just come into this part and just click in a few places and edit all of the colors, make sure everything's on brand, and then it's kind of done straight away. Now, you've only added them at the back here, but you haven't added them at the front. So that will not do anything at the moment. So now I'm going to show you how to do that. What you should know before I go ahead and do that is that we're in blueprints and styles. So if you go back to the main gantry, you will find blueprints and you will find styles. And you'll see that there's a lot that are there already. So if you want to change any of these, you need to copy this out of this folder, make sure you put it in the custom folder, and then your blueprints and your styles. So you can see that I've got some of them that are here already, like the header and the footer, for example. If you don't do that, if you make changes directly, anytime you update, you're going to lose your changes. So make sure you put them in the custom folder. Everything you do in Gantry needs to go in the custom folder. So moving on to how to add these things in. So if we go to CSS, this is kind of the main part of my talk, really. My SCSS file is basically, a lot of people know that you can add a custom SCSS file. So most people put all of their CSS in here, or SCSS. I don't do that. I break it up into loads of different places. What I tend to do is do the sections. So if we go back and we go into SCSS here, you'll see that in hydrogen, you've already got these sections. If you want to override these, it doesn't replace them, it adds to them. So again, you would want to copy this and potentially add this in to your custom SCSS. And these are how the sections are. So it's always an underscore and then the name and then SCSS. So if I show you this one, for example, accreditations, what I've done is I've added this variable. So it's just $accreditations -text -color. And that is how you get this input to come out. So that will be, this part will be the text color and the background will be background color. So if I show you that again, I've got accreditations text color and I've got accreditations background. And those are the variables that you need to use to get this background stuff that you've just created to come into your SCSS file. All of the sections have an ID on them, which will be G- whatever you've called it. So my new one would be G- legal statistic. And what I would do is I would make sure I have pretty much all of this in here, and I would just change this variable name to be legal statistic, and this one as well. I generally do the hover color as well, and I generally do G title which is what Gantry uses for the module titles and stuff. So if I show you here, this will be one probably. So you can see it's a H3 and it's G title. Now, when I'm thinking about maintainability, I know that I'm going to want that G title always to have inherited the text color. So by doing this accreditations color, I change it in one place in the back end. It changes the paragraphs, it changes the H1, it changes the H3, it changes the G title, and that's just for maintainability. Now, as part of what I do with this, I also break it up into components. So you can see I'm using Breezing Forms. I break it up into modules. So you can see mod header context is a module. And if there's plugins, I do them as well. And the reason I do that is kind of like I've got some rules that I use when I'm doing this. So I just show you on the custom. I'm just doing import, and then I'm putting the name of the file. So if we find the sections, I've got where we put the sections. Well, anyway, I'll show you Breezing Forms, for example. You'll see here it should always start with an underscore, and then the name, and then SCSS. But when you import it, you don't need to include the underscore or the .scss. As long as you know that, you'll be okay. And the rules that I use is that if it's just a section, I do it in the section. If there's a module within that section, I would create a module file for that. And the reason being that I might move my module into a different section one day, and then it will lose all its styling. So I generally make a module CSS file. People always ask me, does this cause load times to increase and cause problems like that? It doesn't, because it's SCSS. It basically loads it before the website is loaded. It compiles it all into CSS files. So it doesn't actually add any load time to have loads and loads of these things here. So, just on showing. Vinny's asking, would it be legal statistics or legal underscore statistics for the variable name? So if we look at what I called it, I think I called it with a hyphen. So it would be however you've written it. And I think you have to use a hyphen and not an underscore, although I could be wrong on that, but that's the way I've always done it. I think maybe underscore causes problems, so that's why I use it that way. So you might think this is probably a bit of overkill having this many, but for me, it means that if I ever have a module that I use in two different templates, two different websites, I could just copy over this CSS file, right? And now my module's already styled, and I've already got my selectors there. So, for example, I might have to work out how to style the title of a particular module, or maybe it's got an article in it, and I need to style however that's styled, and I don't want to have to remember how to do that every single time. So I can put it in this individual file and copy it over. And in the next project, if I don't use it, so I've got my modules here. If I don't use it, I could just comment it out, and then it's a preprocessor, so it ignores that comment, and I could just add it back in. So like that, it's as simple as that, and that's why I can make this maintainable for future projects. And that's why I said at the beginning, I'm always thinking about the next project, not the current one. So I kind of won't do very much in this accreditations section, because it's only really styling the titles and the background colors and stuff like that. Anything that's in there, be it an article or a module or anything like that, I would separate that and put that into a new file. And it's the same with my components, because I might not use Breezing Forms, I might use a different one next time. As well as that, with Breezing Forms, I've styled my checkboxes slightly differently. So if I show you on the site, I've got these sliders. So the sliders are styled in their own, they're arranged, so they're styled in their own CSS file. Thanks for joining, Joe and Mike. You're a little late, but I'll record this and I'll upload it somewhere so you guys can see it later. Because I'm separating my range, so if I ever decide to use a different methodology, for this range sliders, say I decide to do it in a different way and I don't need the same CSS, well, I can just get rid of that file. And what it means is sometimes if I'm not using sliders on a range slider on a project, I don't need to load that CSS. And it stops me having CSS bloat by having loads of styles in there just in case, when in fact there may be times when I do or don't use them. I can just add or remove them quite easily. So I just go into my custom and I just comment things out. No problems, Joe. Welcome anyway. So if I just show you an example here of some stuff that I've done. Here's my navigation. I'll just comment them out and show you how it looks originally. So here's the original gantry navigation. And you can see it's centered and it's got a bar behind it. If the customer now says to me, actually, I want it to be aligned right, I can work out how to do that, and I can just change it by adding this. So I've now got my navigation, and I've even gone as far as align left and align right are in their own files. And then if I just show you that working, so the customer now has said to me he wants it aligned right, so now it's aligned right. Customer says they don't like the background and they prefer like a pill style. So now I've got my nav pills. I've done that in a new file again. So so now refresh it and it changes the style. And it means that in the future, if I want to do a pill style on another website, I just copy that one file over and make sure I import it properly. Again, the customer could come back to you and don't tell me you haven't had this before, where the customer says, actually, I don't want it aligned right after all. Can I have it aligned left? I've changed my mind. And then, you just change that to the align left and then refresh it. And it's back over the other side. And you must have had it plenty of times where a customer says, actually, no, I liked it the first time. Well, by making things granular in this way and separating these distinct styles, it's really easy to have A, it reusable in a new project, and B, you can add and remove them and the customer changes their mind. It's just a cinch to just get rid of it. If they say, now, actually, no, I did prefer it right after all, you haven't wasted any time particularly. You just uncomment it and puts it to the other side. So let me just check what's next on my list of things to talk about. So yeah, I'll talk to you a little bit about SCSS. So if we look at accreditations, what we've done is we've got the G accreditations, which is, if I show you on the front end, it's always a section, always has a style on it. It's always called section. And it's always called, the ID is always G hyphen and the name of it. So here's our G accreditations here. So we always know that by starting like that, we're only styling this section. And then if you look at this indent G title, what that actually will transfer to in CSS would be like that, basically. So it's caused an error in my thing, but it just saves you having to write that extra G accreditations. You can just write the G title, and as long as you're within these outer quotes for the accreditations, it'll be accreditations and then space G title. So that's a time saver for you guys. And you might also find this a time saver. So I've gone inside the A, I'm inside the bracket still, and then I do and sign, ampersand, colon hover, and then I do my opening bracket. So now that changes all of the anchors when you hover on them without having to write a hover. I mean, it's not much of a time saver for an anchor, but it still helps you to organize your code really neatly. And it saves me quite a bit of time. And it just means that I find stuff really easily by having this convention. You can also do that with your responsive mixins. So if I was to do in here inside accreditations, I could just do like at media and type my responsive behavior there, and then do my opening and closing brackets, and then do that. And even if I'm inside, say I'm inside my G title and I do my media, it doesn't have to be the media first and then the G title second. You can do the media inside the G title and it will still understand what you mean, that you only want it for that particular thing. So that's pretty neat, and saves me quite a bit of time as well. And I write quite a lot of less code because of that. Also, I should probably tell you about the variables. So I'm using color scheme here as my color scheme variables. I've just made some notes for myself about this is the base text color. That's a gantry variable, and the background as well. And accent color is taken from my styles in the background. At the very top here, I've got this accent color. And so gantry comes with accent color 1 and 2. I've decided to add a third one. I'll show you how I did that. So I'm back into, I'm in custom, and I'm in, what am I in, blueprints? Yeah, I'm in accent in blueprints. So this is the default one, and I've just added color 3 to the end of it. So sometimes I find that I need a primary color, a secondary color, and then sometimes I like to have like a completely contrasting color or something for my design. So I'll add the third one there, and it will show in the background. And then all of these colors are accessible in any of your files just by using this variable, accent color 1 or 2. So you'll see that I've probably used it somewhere. But I also sometimes add my own. So you can see here, I've created maybe some colors for that Sue may have. Sue's obviously made up. So now that I've got these variables, I've made up a color scheme, which I just made on coolers.io or whatever it is. Now I could just use this light orange variable in any of my files. So if we go into, let's have a look at something that we want to change the color of. So this is CTA module, I know. So if I find my, go back to my CSS, and then I find my, I called it mod CTA, or what have I called it? Oh, it's here, CTA. So if I do that, and then I want my H2, I might change the color here to be accent color 1. So if I change that now, and it should change on the front end as well. It hasn't. That's not very good. What have I done wrong there? Shout if you saw the error. Let's just copy and paste it. Is it right? It's right. Let's check the custom. So maybe I haven't got CTA imported. I have got CTA imported. Let's call the right thing. Okay, I'm not sure. Oh, maybe I didn't upload it. No, I didn't. I'm not sure what the problem is there, but that just shows you how to do it. It does work. Trust me, I've done it on a lot of websites. Not the best demo, obviously, but the reason to do that is thinking about maintainability and reusing this over and over again in other sites. You might use a call to action, CTA, in all of your sites, and you might say, actually, it's always going to be this contrast color, it's always going to stand out from the other colors. Or you might just say accent color 1. Whatever way you decide to do it, it just means that when you set up your colors at the very beginning, it's really easy for you to do that. Would I create a CSS file for specific pages, Gary has said. Yes, I potentially would do that. And if I was going to do that, I would base it on the outline. So if you look in my files here, I've probably done it as an example. So here is outline 119 subpages. So in this case, what you can do in the front end is you will notice that every page, if I just show you the source code, can you all see the source code? I'm sure you can. You've seen everything else. If you find the body, in the body, you've got all these gantry classes, and you've got an item ID, which is the menu, but you also have, we're on the home page, so it won't work. Let's try a different page. Okay, so if we find the body again, you'll find that it's outline 116. So in doing that, I know that I can use for example, on this page, I might do a class of outline 116, and then because I can do everything indented in my outline, I mean, I can't really think of a real reason to do it here, because I would try and style everything generally as a site overlay. So I wouldn't really want to change, for example, it's very unlikely that I'd want to change like the section style, but it might be that I want to change, say, for example, I want a different color for each menu item. So it goes red, green, blue or something. And then when I click on that, I then want the header to be the same color. So then I might do on this outline, the header, and then I would just do background. And I'd have a variable for it. So I'd have like purple or whatever it is. And then, that won't work because I haven't got a variable purple in my CSS file. But that's how I would do that for a specific outline. So yeah, you can find your outline in if you inspect your element, and you'll see the number. And obviously, to find the number, you've obviously got your blueprint. Oh, sorry, you've got your you've got custom, and then config, and that's where you find your outline number. And you also find it in your outlines in the IDs here. But to help myself out, I also name my outlines with the ID just so I can remember the stuff. But because I've just done this, and purple doesn't exist, I'll upload this now. And let's see if it creates an error for us. No, it doesn't. Brilliant. What I want to do basically is create an error. So if I come to how will I create an error? You can do them very easily when you don't want to, I can tell you that. We definitely haven't got purple, have we? No, we haven't. Let's do one in here, and we'll just call we'll just make up a color and just see if it's possibly the possibly I haven't loaded that. All right, let's give it that. I'll give body a color of purple, and we'll upload it and see if that causes us an error. It doesn't cause an error there. Let's recompile the CSS here and see if that causes an error. Okay, cool. It did. Right. So this is what I want to show you. When you do this recompile CSS and you get an error, it's kind of annoying. You get this thing pops up and it disappears. But if you hover on it, it stays. So if you inspect the element, you can see if I move off this, see there's a bar at the bottom, a little timer. So I go back off, it will restart. Every time I move off, it goes down. So I have to keep the mouse on it. And then if I use tab, and that's brought me over to my inspect element, I just need to inspect. I need to open up these divs, and you'll see this one's saying buttons. Now, in this instance, we know for a fact that we caused the error. In fact, you can always assume that it was you that caused the error, not Gantry, because it works. And this one, we're looking at the URL, and we're seeing it's in Media and Gantry. What we're really looking for is something in our custom folder. And there's a lot of them, and I know this is a little bit annoying, but this is just to show you how to troubleshoot this stuff. So I'll open up all of these, and I'm just looking for one. So this one's saying typography and custom, so that's a possibility, although we know it's not because we caused the error. So be aware it does give false flags sometimes. I'll show you how to find that as well. So I'm going all the way up, and I'm just looking for all of these ones that are in custom. And as I go, I know it's really annoying. And so there's another one there in custom, so there's two. So sometimes you have to keep looking for them. Typographies come up again. So again, we're just looking for all of these ones so we can try and rule them out. And it's a real pain in the arse. So I would just make a note of every single one of them the first time round. I know this is a bit boring to show you on a demo, but this is kind of what you have to do to troubleshoot. So I'm just showing you guys my process. So I just go through and open all of them. Now, we're seeing typography, which is a false flag, but I'll show you how I would rule that out now. So look, if we've got them all open now, and if we scroll down, we see typography. Because I moved off the thing, it's disappeared. Typical. I should have known better. So that's how I would do that. Now, it said typography, so if we do typography, we can see typography is up here. So what I would do is I would just comment out typography, and then I would re-upload it, and then I would recompile my CSS, and you should still see the error because we know that's not what caused it. So again, I would have to go through this whole process, hover on that, tab over to the other one, and open them all. It's kind of a difficult, annoying process, but here's a way that I might overcome that annoyance. So first of all, check the last file you're editing, because it's probably something you've just done. Sometimes you get an error on the front end, so that helps if it comes up straight away. Sometimes you don't get an error until you recompile the CSS. And things, giveaway might be that your CSS is not updating, which would show that there's an error potentially in your files, which may be why my CSS wasn't updating a minute ago, although I did check this earlier. What I would do is I would say, for example, I've touched these ages ago, and I know I haven't done anything wrong in there. I haven't made any changes, so I know I'm all good there. And I've got all these ones at the bottom. So what I would generally do is probably go about halfway down and just comment out, like, maybe we can get rid of that. That was out. And then maybe just come down here and uncomment at that point and rule out half of those, and then just do an upload. And then I could say, if my problem then gets fixed, when I go here and I recompile, if my problem gets fixed, I know it's within those half, and then I would just keep trying to rule things out. So if it's not in that half, then I would just uncomment them, assume that those guys are safe, and then comment out maybe the top half and just say, oh, maybe the problem's in this half. And then if my problem gets fixed, then I know straight away, okay, the problem's in that half. And then what I would do is just say, okay, half of that is at the top half of the bottom half, and just go halves and halves and halves. That will save you a lot of time trying to work it out rather than trying to find out this problem using this methodology. It might be just as quick to split it in half and just keep going half and half and half until you get down to the one that you find. As it happens, we know that the problem was caused by me, so we can just delete that, and hopefully, live coding would probably go wrong, but hopefully now when we go back to here and recompile, we see that it works. So there you go, it's compiled again. It can be frustrating, especially with the false flags, and you can start to feel like it might be Gantry's fault, and it kind of never is. So always just assume it's something you've done and just try and rule it out one file at a time, and I try and rule it out in batches. You see an error on recompile CSS, you'll see loads of stuff referring to Bourbon. It's a JavaScript library. I don't know what it does. It's not something I've added. It's just something that is added by Gantry, and they use it, and you don't really need to know what it is. I think that's pretty much it. Sometimes I use overrides for Joomla as well, so obviously try and save them on a per project basis so you can reuse them. Take this and make things your own, make things reusable. I try not to go crazy putting. I try and think that if I edit accreditations, like that's a section, I could use that on every single site. So if I'm doing a major override of that just for one particular site, then I would probably create a new file, and I would do accreditations, and I'll do like site name, or I'll put in lowercase, site name .css, and then just add that to my custom, because what I'm trying to do is make this reusable in every single project. So I don't want to go into an extreme update of a section when I won't really reuse that in the next project. I'll have to find all of the stuff I've done and delete it, or leave a load of CSS that I don't use in a new site. So I'd rather just keep things light and do my overrides by making that sort of override like that, and then adding it in the custom. And then, I would just like add it here or something, because I've added it afterwards, obviously, the CSS cascades, and then that one gets the preference. So that's what I would do for that sort of thing. Is there any more questions that people had? I think Brian had one earlier that I missed. Is it possible to export the template setting to another site? Well, actually, you can't really do it to another site, but because you know where to find the files now, right, you could probably copy and paste stuff. So if you're in your config and you're in here, say for example, well, let's use one with 7, which was the home one we edited earlier. So say you want to, bring the layout across, you could just copy and paste this into a new layout YAML. That's not going to be very hard to do. So you could do that, or you could in fact copy just the files across, potentially. I would be worried about overwriting things if you've already started working on it. I would say that would be the biggest risk of that, if you're going to do it to a new thing. Is there any more questions that guys have? Mark the Sparks jumper. Yes, thanks, Phil. It was on Cyber Monday sale. If anyone wants a copy of my default install, I know SD has asked me for it. I will clean it up today and send it to you guys. I don't use the particles, no. So if we show the back end and I go to my layout, you can see they're all grayed out, right? So that's because I've switched them off here. I just switched that off. I really don't use them. What I do is I use this module position particle. I create my sections, as I've just showed you in my layout YAML. And then it's kind of like versus my layout that I wanted to create. So then I create my sections like that. And then once I've created them, I go into the back end and I drag modules into positions. So I almost always create a module position called legal statistic for the section called that. But sometimes I might also create a row, and I might just have I might need a picture or something, and then I would kind of use Gantry to do this layout, and then I would use Gantry to do the sizing. You can, if you want to, you can do this in the code, but I just find it a little easier. So if I do that now and I save it, hopefully we're on the base outline. So if I do that and show you on default, and then go on the layout, legal statistics will be somewhere, and it will have that. Oh, maybe I haven't refreshed it. Somewhere it will have that sizing and stuff, which you can. I don't know why it's not showing up, but here you can see this one is 62 wide, this one is 56 wide, so you can just type it in if you want. I never do it. I always use Gantry because it's too easy to make mistakes in YAML with the spacing. It's got to be 2 spaces and stuff like that. But then, yeah, obviously now I've created my module positions, I would rename these to sensible positions, but I've got my legal statistics. So if I go to modules, and then I'll just create a new module, and then I'll just use a custom module. And it comes up in the drop down. If I type in legal, you can see, typed it wrong. You can see it's come up as legal statistics. So it's already coming up in the back end. So it's really easy to put the modules in there. And for me, I think Rocket Theme have created some really, really good particles. But the trouble is, if you ever decide to use a new template, which isn't Gantry, then you lose all of your data. But if it's in a module, you don't. And so some of the Rocket Theme particles that are cool, I've actually just converted into a Joomla module and then used the Joomla way of doing things, which I find to be better. It's preference, whatever you find quickest and easiest. I definitely don't do that because if I change template provider, at least I don't have to redesign the entire website. So I'm not cancelling. Any other questions? Is removing sections? Yeah, removing sections is as easy to do. So if I remove that, I'm not sure why this doesn't know. So I've got to be careful of the spacing. So I'm going to make sure that's lining up. And that is my layout there. So I do that, it should be removed. Let's check it. So space outline. So yeah, it's gone. So that's how easy it is to remove the section. What I would say to you guys is if you're editing and you're editing this one and you're on live, and then I do something in here, and then I start tinkering around in the back and doing something, and I click save, it's going to save this file. So it might, if you're doing something here and you do something in the back, this file will update, but it won't on your code editor. And then you might do something in here and then upload it. And what will happen is you'll just have undone all of the stuff you've done in the back end. So I try to remember to close my files quite often for this YAML layout stuff. Any other questions? How can I build a dating app with this? Very good, Gary. Well, if you were at the beginning, Gary, you'd know how to do that. Got a dash. Okay. See you later, Alison. For the rest of you guys, I'm thinking about doing some more talks, and I thought I'd get some feedback from you guys about what you'd like to hear about. So I'm thinking about doing one on a totally bespoke template from scratch. I'm thinking about doing one for DevOps for Joomla. So basically, I've been creating my Amazon S3 buckets in code. I'll be creating the bucket, a username, assigning a role to the user. I've been making the user only person that can access the bucket and making sure that users only have access to create and use S3 buckets. And that takes me about sort of like 10 minutes. So I was going to show you guys how to do that, to create, 30 buckets in about 10 seconds. It's like much quicker than going through the AWS console. Another idea I had was about creating automations for Joomla. So I've been doing stuff where I fill in a contact form and it goes into your CRM system with a lead. So something like that maybe you might find useful. If anybody wants any of those things, just shout in the window. Or if there's anything else you'd like to learn, just shout in the window and I'll try and do a talk on that. Yeah, I haven't used Inspire Theme one's SD, but they do look good. I've looked at a few of them. I know they make some particles as well. Either way, they're using Gantry, so this process will work with them. Okay, cool. Thanks for the feedback. I'll try and do some more videos later on in the year. You love the particles, yeah. I've seen the particles. The only reason I don't use them is because I like to stick to the core, and if I change template. But there really isn't anything wrong with using particles if you get things done quickly and you can just get a website out quicker and get paid quicker. Then go for it. Everybody should do things their own way. I'm not saying this is the best way. This is just the way I do things. Okay, if that's it from everybody, I'll end the conversation here, and we'll upload it somewhere. I'll speak to Joomla Shack because I really made this for those guys for their conference. So I'll speak to them, and we'll get them guys to upload it on their conference playlist, and you guys can watch it and share it and everything there. If anybody wants to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter on I'm Square Balloon. Instagram, we're just Square Balloon, and Facebook, we're squareballoon.co.uk. If you want my files, just write to me at the website, squareballoon.co.uk. I'll provide you with an Akiba backup file. I just have to delete all of the paid components first, and then I'll supply that guys to you. Yeah, I know Tim. He's a good guy, and he does a podcast as well. So yeah, I'll try and link up with him maybe to do some tutorials because he does a great job of that. Thanks for that feedback, Vinny. Okay, guys, if that's it, I'm going to end it here. But if anyone wants to contact me, just get in touch over social media and we can have a chat. Thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate you being here. Bye.